in the dental transitions world, what a lot of people don't realize is that brokers are not the ones really setting these practice values. It's more so the banks. So as a broker, we all kind of know what they're going to lend up to, especially once we've looked at the financials and other parts of the practice. So that is kind of where the foundation of a practice valuation begins. And so today I kind of want to make a video for you guys, just break down how it's a little bit more art than science when you're doing a valuation, the roles the banks play, some of the things about how Addbacks are involved, and then of course how brokers are painting the picture for the valuation that they're presenting to you. So I do want to make a note that valuations are still a very important part of this entire process. They're just not as straightforward as a lot of people would think that they are. So I get a lot of calls and people say, hey, like I've read it's 78 to 82% of collections, and a lot of times it does fall into that range. However, it is not as easy as just saying, yes, last year's collections, this percentage. I've seen practices sell for under 70%. I've seen practices sell for over 90% of this. So to think that way is really not the best way to go when you're doing this. Because again, they might have a lot of sales, but it's a poorly run business. Or it could be like super well run and just not have that great of sales yet. So there's a lot of like other parts of the puzzle that you need to really think about before just taking the back of a napkin, putting that percentage down, saying, hey, here's the price. So with that, the role of the banks, again, they're really going to be the ones driving this because they do lend a very hefty amount to dentists, including some working capital, but they do set their limits. A lot of it's based on cash flow. It's basically what is capping what the practice is actually worth in the market. So the other part of this though is there's just so many banks that want to be in dental because again, it's a low failure rate. Dentists are very good at paying back. So a lot of these things make you good clients. And so a lot of these newer banks are just the banks that want to get, market share. They're really just throwing deals together to win the deal. So even if they're going to go up to a price, they might just be doing that to win the deal. So it might not mean that's what the practice is worth. So again, there's a lot of great banks out there. There's some banks that I would probably avoid, but then also, it's going to go on the other side too. So if a broker says they want, X amount for a practice, a lot of times the bank can be that safety net if they're not going to let you overpay for it, because again, they're only going to go up to a certain amount based when they do their analysis. But in that case, the broker will probably stand their ground, it would be my guess. And they're going to either ask you to come up with additional cash out of pocket, or they might do some type of seller financing with a note or something like that. So that's kind of where the banks, again, they play a big part in what the practice actually sells for. And, I'll get probably questions about, is this for any practice? I want a small practice, or I want a massive practice, or I want to take over the world with a DSO. This is mostly the Main Street type practices. So really there's like Main Street practices and mid-market practices. And most of the deals that I see are Main Street deals. It's your classic dentist who wants to be a business owner. They want their one practice. It's smaller, community-based type of place. And that's where, again, reputation is very important. The growth potential matters. And then the mid-market deals are you think those multi-locations, they're larger. Those are actually where there is more science in evaluation because, again, they're going to be looking a lot harder at adjusted EBITDA. A lot of things that are in the financials a lot stricter. So, but for you, if you're a dentist and you're like, hey, I just want to own a business, tired of being an associate, or you're selling your practice and you're like, I just want to make sure my practice goes to the right buyer to carry the legacy I built, it's going to be this Main Street where the valuation is more art than science. So the thing when you're looking through it, it's just not as straightforward as like here's the P&L, because the thing about being a business owner is you get to write off stuff, you get to put expenses in there. You'd be shocked at what I see in some of these P&Ls a lot of times. But again, the Addbacks is where you're going to need to know what you're looking at. Sometimes these are called adjustments. People call it seller discretionary earnings. But basically, it is a way to take the financials and really show the true potential of what the practice would be paying you as the owner. And so you're going to add things back like, personal expenses like one-time cost, interest, depreciation. These are all things, traveling, your cars. It's things that are being written off as an expense that takes down the net income. Well, you add those back to say, hey, like this is actually a value to you as the owner. So that's really where these valuations come into place on the cash flow side. But again, if you're a buyer, just be careful. The add-backs can be manipulated. Some people think something should be, some people think it shouldn't. The bank thinks something, broker, seller. So again, you just need to make sure what they're actually saying as an add-back actually is justified. Because again, people write off stuff all the time. Any business owner in America could tell you that. So you just got to make sure you know what you're looking for. So after the add-backs, this is where the broker, is painting the picture. And a lot of them are really good at it. That's kind of why they're doing what they're doing. There are some that aren't as good, but again, you got to know how they're pitching it to you. If you're the buyer, remember that they're representing the seller. If you're the seller, you got to make sure that they are, positioning your practice in the best light as possible. So when a broker's presenting this outside of just the numbers, which a lot of times they don't even go too deep into the numbers, they're going to be highlighting the growth potential. The guy hasn't marketed in forever. You could add implants or clear aligners. Those are things that they're going to say to make you think of, future income streams. They're going to take the weakness of the practice, turn it into an opportunity. If they're not, digital, if there's outdated equipment, they're not open X amount of days, they tell you that as saying, hey, if you add this, there's more revenue right there. And then the one that really does actually hold some weight is they're going to leverage, the goodwill that the practice has with the community. And honestly, it's the bulk of the price allocation when you go through the entire process. So for me, a good practice reputation, patients who love going there, team who loves it, something like that is worth way more than something that's doing a ton of numbers. Like, because people could just be, filling and billing, when in reality is like you want to make sure that this is a long-term investment for you. So the brokers are telling good stories. They make the practice seem more attractive. It's probably still a good deal, but you got to make sure that you're just really paying attention to what they're saying. So, that's kind of where I wanted to make this video, just again, highlight some of the things of this being a lot more art than a science. Honestly, some of it's theater as well. So that's something to be, in the know when you're doing this. But when you're selling or buying, this is kind of like what I wanted you to really take a look at. So here's the three things again. So you're going to see you got your bank influence. That's understanding what the bank's going to pay on this practice. You got to define the add-backs, very important when you're coming up with a valuation. And then really understand the broker's narrative. Because again, they might be saying things, you just got to know what they're talking about. So those are the three things that are super important when you're doing evaluation or analyzing a practice. So if you're listening to this, or you're looking at a practice, selling one, you're like, hey, I want help on this whole valuation process. It's, clear as mud to me. I would love to help you. This is what I do every day with dentists. That is part of my process on, either side, making sure that I give you my own broker opinion of value. And so if you want help, you can reach me at 480-690-5200, or you can email me at info@dentalbroker.com, and I'd love to talk to you. Later.